Hello students, today in this video we are going to study about the chemistry. So let's see that which topic that we are going to start today. So the chapter which we are taking is rate of reaction and chemical equilibrium. As you all know that chemical reactions occur in nature, right? And all the chemical reaction, they possess a certain kind of speed. Right. That means the process of formation of reactants to products or the process of conversion of reactant to products needs certain time. And time specifies that they have a certain speed also. So in this chapter, we are going to study about the speed of reaction, which is called as rate of reaction. And also we'll come to study about the new phenomena that is chemical equilibrium. So let's start this interesting chapter. Topics to be covered in this video are, we'll study that the chemical reaction and its types, we'll study the rate of reaction, we'll study about the types of rates of reaction, we'll study about the factors that influence the rate of reaction, we'll study about the law of mass action, we'll study about the characteristics of K. So first, let us start with chemical reaction, because the topic which we are doing, that is the rate of reaction and chemical equilibrium, that is confined only to chemical chain, that is the chemical reaction. So first of all, we should know that what is actually a chemical reaction. We have already done that chemical reaction is a such process in which we have certain substances and these substances combine to form some other substance, or you can say that initially we have some substances and they give rise to a new substance. As a result, we can say that they undergo a sort of chemical change. That means they are undergoing a certain change, that is a chemical change, and they lead to the formation of new substance. We also know that the species which are written on the left hand side, they are called as reactants. They are called as reactants. The species which are written on the right hand side, they are called as products. We also know that reactants can be of different types, or you can say it can be of different nature, and also their number can vary. So I'll just write here that the reactants can be of different nature. The reactants can be of different nature, and the number of reactants can vary depending upon the reaction to reaction. So number of reactants can be different for different reaction, and even all the reactants, they possess different nature also. And if we talk about the products, then the products can also be of different nature. They are also of different nature, and moreover, in a similar manner, the number of products that are formed in a particular reaction, that also varies. In some reaction, we get to see only one product, and in few reactions, there are 4-5 products. So it can be any. Reactants can be as many, can be 1 or 2 or many, and even the products can be 1, 2 or many. So the number of reactants and products can vary from reaction to reaction. So I think you got it that what is chemical reaction. Let's take a quick example also. Let's say if I have a beaker, right, which contains a solution, let's say that it contains barium chloride. I have another solution, right, in which I have lead sulfate. I have lead sulfate. So when I'll mix them, then what happens? They will combine with each other. Just write the reaction. They will combine with each other, and as a result, they get converted into the new compounds. So what we'll get that barium will combine with sulfate. So we'll get barium sulfate, and we'll get the lead chloride. So this is what is a chemical reaction. So in this we have 2 reactants, and on the right hand side we have 2 products. So I think you got it that what actually is a chemical reaction. And we have seen that every reaction has a speed to occur. You know that in a reaction, the reactants are giving rise to product. The reactants are giving rise to products. So obviously there'll be a certain speed. There'll be a certain speed at which the reactants will be converted into products, right? So this speed here refers to the rate of reaction. This speed refers to the rate of reaction. So rate means it is actually a speed at which the reactants are getting converted into product. So this is what we are going to study in this chapter. So to deal with the rate of reaction and the factors that influence the rate of reaction, the branch of chemistry that is responsible is chemical kinetics. So what is chemical kinetics? Chemical kinetics is a branch of chemistry that deals with the study of the speed of the different reactions, or you can say the rate of reaction, and also the factors that affect its rate. Also the factors that affect the rate of any particular reaction. So what we'll do, we'll study the speed, that depending upon speed, what kind of reactions we have. We are also going to study about the factors, that what are the factors that are making the reaction slow or fast in its rate. So we'll in general study about the all factors which can influence, but there are few reactions which are influenced by only certain factors. Let's say, for an example, if I have a reaction, let's say I have silver chloride, right? We know that silver chloride decomposes in the presence of sunlight. So when sunlight falls on it, this AgCl breaks up into Ag and Cl2. So initially it is white, and then with time, when it is exposed to sunlight, it breaks and the silver turns out to be gray. So this reaction is influenced by radiation. This reaction is influenced by the radiation because it is occurring in the presence of light. So in this case, the light can be a factor, not can be, it is actually a factor. It is a factor that is influencing the rate of decomposition of silver chloride. But if I consider a reaction in which H2 plus O2 combines to form H2O, so in this case, in this reaction, the light plays no role. So we can say that this reaction is independent of the light because there is nothing to do with light in this reaction. So the rate of the reaction for this particular reaction will be independent of the light. That means the radiations are not involved. So for this, the radiation stands nowhere. But in case of AgCl, it is occurring in presence of light. So obviously here light plays a role. So likewise, there are different factors which affect the different reactions. Like for a particular reaction, the light can be a factor which is affecting the rate, and for the other reaction, the light may not have any certain role to play with its rate of reaction. So let's conclude something about chemistry. As you all know that we have studied chemical reaction and its types, right? So chemical reaction and its types, what we did in stoichiometry and chemical reaction in that chapter, what we did, we actually came across different reactions, that how these substances are converting into the new substance. And we also come across different types of reaction depending upon either they are combining, or the compound is decomposing, or a displacement is occurring, or a double decomposition is occurring. So we have got different reaction. So this chapter actually gives us the information about the different reaction. Also, it gives us the information about the types of reaction, and also that how the substances are reacting. How the substances are reacting. So that is the reason we are studying the chemical reaction and its type. There is another branch, that is thermodynamics. There is another branch of chemistry, that is thermodynamics. Thermo means heat. This chapter actually you can say convey the information about the heat changes, and also tell us that which reaction is feasible, that means which reaction can actually occur, or which reaction is non-feasible. So we can say that thermodynamics deal with heat changes and also gives us the information about the feasibility or non-feasibility for any reaction. Similarly, we have another branch which we'll be taking up in this second part, that is equilibrium. This reaction actually gives us the information about the extent of reaction. This branch gives us the information about the extent of reaction. That is, you can say that to what extent the reactants are getting converted into product. Up to what extent the reactants are converting into product. So this equilibrium provides the information related to the extent. Third branch is kinetics. Kinetics, which we are studying in this part 1, it gives us the information about the time taken to you can say that proceed, time taken by a reaction to proceed. That is, the process of converting the reactants to products require a certain time, and that time is actually revealed by chemical kinetics. So these 4 branches are very important. One is chemical reaction, which we are studying about the different types. What is the chemical reaction, that how the reactants are converting into products, how you can say the process which is involved, that how it is getting converted. Thermodynamics confirms the feasibility or non-feasibility, equilibrium confirms the extent, and kinetics confirm the time taken, or you can say the speed at which the reactants are converting into products. Let us take one example. We all are familiar with graphite and diamond. We all are familiar with graphite and diamond. We know that graphite is a black substance. It is a black substance. And diamond, you know, is very sparkling. You know that diamond is very sparkling and quite expensive also. And quite expensive. But graphite is not expensive. Graphite is non-expensive in comparison to diamond. It stands actually nowhere. But do you know that there is a procedure, or you can say there is a chemical reaction, or you can know that diamond has a tendency to convert into graphite. Diamond has a tendency to convert into graphite. But you can say that maximum of us are not aware of this, that diamond has a tendency to get converted into graphite, or any diamond is slowly changing into graphite. Most of us are not aware. And even if we convey it to somebody, he or she will feel that it is a kind of joke. Because how come this sparkling and expensive thing can on its own get converted into this black substance? But yes, this reaction is taking place. This reaction do take place. But you can say the time taken to convert diamond to graphite is so slow that we hardly feels that this type of reaction can exist. The time taken for this reaction is so much, or you can say the rate is so slow that we hardly feels that these kind of reaction exist or they are feasible. We are not aware of it. But if we'll study in detail, then this reaction do exist, but the rate of this reaction is quite slow. That is the reason we all cannot believe this kind of conversion. So that means different reactions take different time to proceed. Different reactions take different time to proceed. So depending upon that, we have the different types of reactions. We have instantaneous reaction. So what is instantaneous reaction? Let's study first. Instant, that is, which is occurring very soon. So we can say that instantaneous reaction is a reaction which occurs as soon as reactants are mixed. As soon as reactants are mixed. For example, if I consider a neutralization reaction, we know that in neutralization reaction, acid and base react, and as a result they form a neutral substance, that is salt, and along with it we get water. Let's take another example, or you can say a proper equation. We have HCl and we are reacting it with sodium hydroxide. So we'll get a salt, that is NaCl, which is neutral. That is why the reaction is neutralization, and along with it we'll get water. This reaction speed is so much that the products are formed at a particular instant, or you can say the products are formed so soon as the reactants are mixed. So as soon as reactants are mixed, we get the products. So that means their speed is quite high. Their speed is quite high. Let's take another example. Let's say we have silver nitrate and we have sodium chloride. We are making them react. And what do we get? We get silver chloride and sodium nitrate. Even this reaction is quite fast in its rate. So we came to a conclusion that all the reactions which are ionic in nature, they show the instantaneous rate. That means they are instantaneous in nature. That is, the products are formed as soon as you mix the reactants. Or you can say that the rate of these reactions are quite high, that you can hardly make out that, like, as you mix this AgNO3 and NaCl, and what happened, instantly you get the product. So you can hardly make out the reaction occurring. So it feels like that you have instantly mixed and instantly you are getting the products. Another kind of reaction are the slow reactions. There are few reactions that their rate is so slow that we can hardly make out that the reaction is actually taking place. That is, we could not make out the conversion of reactant to products, and some of us may believe that this kind of reaction doesn't exist, right? So the slow reactions are those whose rate is so slow that we hardly feel that reaction is taking place. For example, we have rusting of iron. So what happened? In this case, iron, when comes in contact with moist air, then on its surface, you can say that a layer of a flaky rust kind of layer is formed on its surface. That is called as rust. And that is the reason that the iron get converted into this kind of texture due to deposition of this layer. But this reaction is so slow that we hardly feel that something has occurred, or you can say the iron has actually reacted with some other substance, and that is the reason it forms the rust. So it is hard to believe. So I think you got it, that what are slow reactions? Slow reactions are that their rate is too slow. That we hardly feel that the reaction is actually occurring. Third, we have moderate reactions. Moderate reactions are those which are neither slow nor too fast. They are those reactions which are neither too slow nor so fast. For example, if I take an example of electrolysis of water, we know that electrolysis of water is that we have water, we are passing current through it, and as a result, water get decomposed into its constituents, right? So these kind of reactions are very, very, you can say that they possess the moderate rate. They have the moderate rate. So that means, like, if we talk about the instantaneous, then the rate was too fast. And for the slow reaction, rate was too slow. But if we talk about the moderate, the rate is appropriate. That is, it is neither too slow nor too fast. So we can know about the chemical kinetics, or you can see the rate of reaction only for the moderate reactions. We cannot measure the rate for the instantaneous reaction because it is occurring very, very fast that we can hardly apply certain procedure to measure its rate. And even if we talk about the slow reactions, we cannot measure the rate for these reactions also. The reason being that their rate is too slow and it is very hard to measure the rate of such slow reaction. So the rate can be measured easily only for the moderate reactions, right? Because their rate is appropriate and can be easily measured. Now let's study about the kinetics. We are familiar with chemical kinetics. That is, it deals with the study of rate of reaction and the factors that influence the rate for any reaction. So let's define the rate of reaction in a technical term now. So rate of reaction refers to the change in the concentration of reactants or products with time. We know that in all the chemical reaction, the reactants get converted into products. The reactants get converted into products. And this conversion required a certain time because it occurs at certain speed. But what actually happens? So we can define it that with the passage of time, the concentration of reactant is decreasing and the concentration of product is increasing with time. This is what is a chemical reaction, that reactants get converted into product. So for that sake, reactants concentration will decrease with time and the product concentration will increase with time. Let's take an example. If I say that I have a reaction in which A and B react to form AB. So if I need to write the rate of reaction for this equation, so I can express the rate in terms of the reactant also and in terms of the product also. So how we are going to express that? Let's write the rate for this A, that how it is participating in the reaction. So if I need to express the rate in terms of A, I can write like this: rate is equal to change in concentration. So change means delta. Concentration, we know that we have to put the brackets because bracket specifies the concentration and the bracket needs to be the square bracket. So the rate is equal to change in concentration of reactant A with time, with change in time. Now we know that the concentration of reactant decrease with time. So here that decrease is indicated by the negative sign. So whenever you have to express the rate in terms of the reactant, so what you need to put a minus sign, which indicates that the concentration of reactant is decreasing. Change, because if it increase or decrease, we have to put the symbol of delta because it indicates the change. Bracket specifies the concentration. Concentration of which substance is written inside the bracket, and delta T, delta again means change. Change in T specifies the time. So this is how you can write. Now similarly, if I need to express the rate in terms of B, so what I'll write is B is reactant, so obviously minus change in concentration of B with change in time. So this is how I can express the rate of reaction in terms of reactant, because as we did, that rate of reaction can be a change in concentration of reactant. So this is the expression for the reactant, but it can be the change in concentration of products also. So now let's write an expression for products. So if I talk about the products, rate is equal to, right, change in concentration, because it is increasing. So increase or decrease is regarded as a change. So change in concentration means we are going to write the bracket, concentration of a substance. So here we are taking product, so we'll write AB with change in time, with change in time. Here we are not going to put in the negative sign because the concentration of product increase with time. So either we can put the positive sign, or if you're not putting any sign, that also specifies that the concentration of reactant is increasing with respect to time. So I think you got it. So for the overall reaction, we can write that rate is equal to, minus means decrease in concentration of A with change in time, and that is equal to the rate of disappearance of the another reactant. So minus delta B divided by delta T equal to the rate at which the product is formed, or the change in the concentration of products with time. So we'll write change in concentration of AB with respect to change in time. So this is going to be the rate expression for the complete reaction. Let's take another example. Let's say if I have H2 and I am reacting it with I2 and it's a reversible reaction, That is, the reactant can form the product and even the product can form the reactant back. And this is the reversible sign. So if I need to write the rate for this particular reaction, so let's write the rate in terms of H2 first. So rate is equal to decrease, because it is reactant, even it is reactant, change in concentration of H2 with change in time. And that will be equal to the decrease in the concentration of iodine with decrease in time, increase in time. So it is going to be minus delta I2 upon delta T. And it will be equal to the increase in concentration of HI. So we are going to write the plus sign, delta bracket HI upon delta T. So this is what is a rate expression. And if you have any moles present, you can make the moles as stoichiometric coefficient to the required substance. So I'll write this 2 here. So this is how you're going to specify the rate expression. Now, if I want to write the formula of rate in terms of reactant and product, so in general, I can write that rate is equal to increase in concentration of reactant or decrease in concentration of product with change in time, And if I don't need to specify reactant or product, I can directly write as change in concentration of reactant or product with change in time, So either of the formula you can use. Or we can also write in this way, that minus bracket R, right? Or we can have the product P that is decreasing. Now let us study about the formula for the rate in terms of reactant and product. So the overall formula of the rate can be written as change in concentration of reactants or products with time, with change in time. So the formula can be this. And if we need to clearly specify in terms of reactant or product, we can write as increase in concentration of product with change in time, or we can write as decrease in concentration of reactant with change in time. So we can write in either way. Either we can write in terms of reactant and or product, or you can say this is a general way, or we can specify in terms of only product, and we can specify in terms of reactant also. So this is what is the formula of rate in terms of reactant and product. Now let's study the types of rates. So as we know that rate refers to the, you can say the change in the concentration of reactant or product with change in time. So depending upon that, we have two kinds of rate. One is instantaneous rate and other is the average rate. Let's make out that what is the difference between the two. First, we are doing average rate. Average means total. Average means total rate. Or you can say that the total time taken for the conversion of reactant completely into product. Let's say if I have a reaction A and B and they are reacting to give AB. So the total time which is taken by AB in order to completely exhaust and get converted into AB. So the rate for this kind of reaction or this kind of phenomena is going to be average rate, because here we are focusing on the total change in the concentration, right? So average rate specifies the total change in the concentration of reactants or products with respect to the total time which is taken for the reaction to occur. So let's say if this reaction or this conversion took 2 hours, then in the case of rate, we are going to take the overall time which is taken, that is the 2. So average rate refers to the total change in the concentration of reactant or product with respect to time. Let's take a proper example. Let's take if I have A moles of A which are reacting with B moles of B and they are giving rise C moles of C and D moles of D. So if I need to express this in terms of rate expression, so I'm going to do that R is equal to, this is a reactant, right? So this will be minus delta change in concentration of A with change in time. And all the moles are written as stoichiometric coefficients. A. That will be equal to minus, that is decrease concentration of B with change in time. And the moles are written here as B, which is further equal to the concentration change of the products. So it is equal to increase in the concentration of C with change in time. And we can write in terms of D as, the moles are written here as C. And for the sake of D, how we are going to write? That change in concentration of D with change in time, and moles are written as a stoichiometric coefficient. This is how you write the average rate. That is the total time which is taken to calculate the change in the concentration of reactant or products with respect to the total time which is taken for the entire completion. Another we have the instantaneous rate. The other rate is instantaneous rate. Instantaneous rate is a rate which we are looking at a particular instant. Let's say we have a reaction in which reactants convert to give products, but the reaction is not completely done, and in the mid of the reaction we just want to see that how much of reactants got converted to product, or you can say how much of products are actually produced at this particular instant. For writing the particular instant, or you can say for knowing the rate or for knowing the concentration of reactant or product which is changed for a particular instant, not for the entire process, just for a particular instant, that can be expressed in terms of instantaneous rate. So we can write instantaneous rate is equal to the change in concentration of reactant or product at particular instant of time. At that instant of time where you can say at which you need to check it. So if I have a reaction, let's say A moles of A are reacting with B moles of B and they are giving C moles of C and D moles of D. And I need to write the instantaneous rate, not the average rate. So I have a different expression for it. The general phenomena is the same, only it differs by, just watch how I'm writing. Rate is equal to minus change in concentration of A with change in time. The moles are also specified. But in this case, the delta is replaced by D. D specifies the small change. D specifies the small change because we know the entire reaction hasn't taken place. So here we are not going to use delta, not the total change. We are just going to use D, that means a small change. So the difference between the average rate and instantaneous expression is only that the delta is replaced by D in case of instantaneous. So it comes out to be minus D, B, moles, and this is small change in time. Similarly, small change in the concentration of C with change in time raised to its moles is equal to D, small change in the concentration of D with respect to time, and the moles are written like this. So this is how we write the instantaneous rate. So I think you got it, that what is the difference between the average and the instantaneous rate and how you're going to write it. Now let's write rate expression for few more reactions. Let's say if we have a reaction that is NO2 plus O2 forming NO3. Let's say we have a reaction like this. So for writing the change, let's say if I need to write the average rate, so I'll write in this manner, rate is equal to change in the concentration of NO2 with change in time, that is equal to change in the concentration of O2 with change in time, equal to the concentration, that is increase in the concentration or again change in the concentration of NO3 with respect to time. So this is what is the average rate. And if you have moles also, If you have moles also, then you have to specify the respective moles as their powers. Right. Similarly, if I need to write their instantaneous rate, I'll replace this thing delta by D. So I'll have minus d NO2 by dt is equal to minus d O2 upon dt, or equal to d NO3 upon dt. And if there are moles present, you can specify the moles as their powers. So this is how you're going to write the rate expressions, that is for the average rate and for the instantaneous rate. Now let's study about the factors that affect the rate of reaction. As I told you that there are different factors that affect the rate. So out of it, the first factor which we are going to discuss is concentration of reactant. Concentration means how much the reactant is initially present, or how much reactant is easily available which can be converted into product. So the rate is directly proportional to the concentration of reactant. That is, if the concentration of reactant increases, the rate also automatically increases. But if the concentration of reactant is low, so obviously the rate for the reaction will be low. Let's take an example. Let's say if I have a candle and it is burning. You can see its flame. Now what I do is, let me write the general expression first. We know that candle has wax. It is burning in presence of supporter of combustion, and then it is give rise to CO2, water vapor, and heat and light. Right. So when you're burning this candle, you have oxygen present in unlimited amount, and you can see that that candle is burning with this with its respective flame. Now let us cover it with certain flask. Let's say now we have covered it with certain flask. Now when you have covered this with flask, then the oxygen supply is cut off. Oxygen supply is cut off. Now the rate of reaction with time will start decreasing. The reason being, the concentration of reactant is limited. The concentration of the reactant is limited, which is supporting the combustion. So what will happen? With time, we'll see that the rate becomes slower and slower, and finally the the candle blows off. The candle automatically blows off, because there'll be a certain stage when all the oxygen which is present inside this flask get exhausted, and that means this reactant gets exhausted. So that is the reason its concentration decreased, and finally it became zero, and that is the reason the rate of reaction will start decreasing, and finally the reaction stops. So that means the rate of reaction is directly proportional to the concentration of reactants. Another factor is temperature. We know that on the basis of temperature, that is on the basis of energy changes, we have two types of reactions that are occurring. One is the endothermic reaction, and other we have is the exothermic reaction. Endothermic reaction are those which are occurring by absorbing the energy. These reactions are occurring at the cost of absorbing energy. And exothermic reactions are occurring, and as they occur, they evolve, or you can say they release energy. They release energy. For example, of endothermic, let's say we have calcium carbonate, we are supplying it with heat, and it is getting converted into CaO plus CO2. Likewise, for exothermic, like we have fuel, we are burning it, and we are getting energy. We are getting energy. So these are two examples of endothermic and exothermic. So if we talk about the temperature, that how it is affecting the rate of endo and exo. So in general, we can make out that with increase in temperature, the rate must increase. The rate must increase, because more easily the reactant molecules can, you can say, move as their kinetic energy will increase. And when they'll move, they'll, you can say, it can easily break their old bonds and form the new bonds. So that means, in general, if there is increase in temperature, the rate must increase. But we have seen that for endothermic and exothermic, the temperature effect is different. That is, if I talk about the exothermic, so we have seen that with increase in temperature, the rate increases. But for the endothermic, if we can say that, so for it also with increase in temperature, the rate must increase. But these reactions, that is the endothermic, they are favored at high temperature because they need heat to occur. That is, they require heat for the conversion of reactants to products. And the exothermic reactions are favored at low temperature because they are evolving heat, so they need low temperature. Third factor we have is the nature of reactants and products. Nature of reactant and products means how easily the bonds of reactants can be broken, how easily the bonds of reactants can be broken, and how easily the bonds of product can be formed. So more is the ease, I'll write here, more is the ease, that is, if more easily the bonds of reactants can be broken and the bonds of products can be formed, then the rate of reaction will be quite high. The rate of reaction will be quite high. So this is also one of the factors, that is, it depends upon nature of reactant and product. Next we have the surface area of reactant. So before starting it, I would like to ask you one question. Suppose if I have a log of wood. I have a log of wood. And on the other side, I have wood pieces. On the other side, I have wood pieces. Right. So what do you think? Out of these two, which is easier to occur? Like, or you can say which is easier to burn? Log of wood or wood pieces? Obviously, the wood pieces are easier to burn and they will be easily burned and they will get converted into product as compared to the log of wood. So, the reason being that more is the exposed surface area, more is the exposed surface area for any substance, more easily the bonds can be broken and the new ones can be formed. Hence, we can say that more will be the rate of reaction. Another factor is catalyst. What is catalyst? Look, catalyst is a substance that increases the rate of reaction without undergoing any change in itself. Without undergoing any change in itself. It just increases the rate of the reaction without getting consumed or changed. For example, if I have a reaction in which A and B combines to form AB and I'm writing something on the top of this arrow. So this thing actually indicates that this reaction is speeded up, or you can say this reaction is favored by this catalyst because it is a substance that increases the rate of reaction without undergoing any change in itself. So all those reactions which involve the catalyst, they have quite high rate. The reason being, or you can say the reason being behind the use of catalyst, the reactants couldn't combine that easily. So that easily, similarly, that easily not they are not forming the product. We can say that the reactant couldn't combine easily, and as a result, the product formed is delayed. So, but if we make use of catalyst, this catalyst will combine with either of it, and like if I say that C combines with A, so it forms AC, and this AC can easily react, or you can say rapidly react with B in order to form the product AB. And this catalyst will remain separated. It will remain as such. Even the quantity is going to remove as such because it just participates in the chemical reaction without getting consumed, or you can say change, any kind of change. Another factor is exposure to radiation. I told you that the nature of the reactions are different. So we come across different reactions which are photochemical in nature. That is, those reactions are occurring only when they are exposed to radiation. For example, if I have silver chloride, let's say I have silver chloride, I am exposing it to sunlight. So what happens? It breaks down. So if the you can say the radiation intensity is quite high, then even the rate of reaction is going to be high. So the reaction which is occurring at ordinary temperature is not that much, you can say, possess speed as compared to the reactions which are photochemical, or you can say which are influenced by the use of catalyst. So I think you got it, that on what factors the rate of reaction depends. Let's take one more example for the exposure of radiation. H2 plus Cl2 in the presence of light gets converted into 2HCl. So this is possible only if the radiation intensity is quite high, and as a result what will happen, the reactants will change into products, and even the speed for the conversion will be high, and even for the time for the conversion will be very slow. So this is how the rates are affected. Now let's start with the law, that is law of mass action. This law actually gives the relation between the rate of reaction and how they are related to concentration of reactant. So according to this, the rate of reaction is directly proportional to the concentration of reactants raised to their respective moles. As we have done the factors, in that also we studied that the rate depends upon the concentration of reactant. As far as the concentration of reactant will remain high, the rate is also going to remain high. But as the concentration of reactant decreases, the rate of reaction also decreases. So this law actually gives us the relation that how we can find the rate for the reaction, or you can say how it is affected with change in the concentration of reactant. So according to this, the rate of reaction is directly proportional to the concentration of reactants. Rate of reaction is directly proportional to the concentration of reactant raised to the respective moles. X specify moles. Let's say if I have a reaction in which A and B combines to form AB, and the moles involved are, let's say, A, B and C. So I can write the rate like how it is depending on the concentration of reactants by R is directly proportional to concentration of reactants into, this is not plus, this is going to be multiply sign, concentration of B, that is the another reactant. In this we are not going to write the AB because AB is product, and the rate of the reaction depends only on the concentration. This is what specifies the law of mass action, and they are raised to their respective moles. So this is A and B because their moles were A and B. So removing this proportionality sign, we can convert into formula by making use of K, that is the constant. K is the rate constant. K is the rate constant. So it is equal to K, then concentration of A raised to power A, concentration of B raised to power B. Please do not forget that this is a multiply sign, right? Not a plus or something. So this is how you can write the rate in terms of reactants, and it's their dependence on the concentration of reactants according to law of mass action. Now let's define the rate constant. Now let's define the rate constant. We know that R is equal to K, right? And let's say we have reactants A and B, as I took the example in the previous slide, and the moles were A and B. So how I'm going to define the K? So rate constant will be numerically equal to rate of the reaction. The rate constant is numerically equal to the rate of reaction only if the concentration of reactants are unity. The concentration of reactants are unity. Or we can say that, let's assume the concentration of reactant, right, and the concentration of product is taken as unity, Now, if the concentration is taken as unity and even the moles are 1, then we can write this value in this formula as R is equal to K, 1 power 1, 1 power 1, then K will be numerically equal to the rate of the reaction. So we can define that rate constant is numerically, rate constant, you can write in your copies, rate constant is numerically equal to the rate of reaction only if the concentrations of reactants are taken as unity, So under this condition, the rate constant is equal to rate of the reaction. So you need to write, or you can say you need to write about the K, or you need to take the concentration or assume the concentration as 1 only if it is given that define K. So in this K, how you're going to do that, you are going to write the expression that this is according to law of mass action, and here the K specifies the rate constant. And if, let us assume, you're going to assume it, let us assume the concentration of A, and this is taken as unity. So by putting this formula, we get this result. So K is numerically, or K becomes numerically equal to the rate of reaction when the concentration of reactants are taken as unity. So I think you got it. Now let's write the characteristics for rate constant, that is K. What does actually K reveals? It is actually, you can say, a measure of rate of reaction, that how fast the reactants are getting converted into products. So it is a measure of rate of reaction. That means higher the value of K, that means R is higher, that is the rate of reaction is going to be higher. Or we can say in a vice versa form, if the rate is higher, obviously the K is going to be higher. And we have seen that different reactions, they have different values of K. Different reactions, they have different values of K. At constant temperature, the value of K is also constant. But if the temperature increase, the rate of reaction increase, and therefore the K also increase. And it has seen that for every 10 degrees Celsius rise in temperature, the rate and K almost doubles. The rate and K almost doubles. But if we talk about the constant temperature, value of K also remains constant. And if we talk about the units, how we express it, we know that rate is equal to K, or we can say that rate constant is equal to rate. We know that rate is change in concentration. Change in concentration is, that means moles per liter. That means moles per liter with respect to time. That is moles per liter per second. So the general unit which is actually used to express the concentration is moles per liter, and time is specified as second. But the unit varies from, you can say, from reactant to reactant, because we have to consider the moles also involved in it. But the general, you can say, the units that are used is concentration in moles per liter and time in seconds. Now let's do the collision theory. Let's do the collision theory. See, whenever we are mixing reactants, let's say I have two reactants A and B, and I am mixing them. So when I'm mixing reactants, what they do, right? So when I'm mixing the reactants, right, so they are moving. They are randomly moving because they possess kinetic energy. So when they are randomly moving, they come closer to each other also. That means the different A molecules and different B molecules, they possess kinetic energy. On mixing, they are randomly moving. And when they are randomly moving, as you can see in the figure also, they start moving closer also. They are coming across each other. So we can say that coming across means that they tend to collide with each other. They tend to collide with each other. Right. So as you can see in this figure, that these molecules possess kinetic energy, they are randomly moving, and as a result, they are colliding also with the other molecules. Right. And the collisions are actually necessary. Like if we want the reactant to get converted into product, the collisions is a necessary factor. Collision is a necessary factor. But we have seen that the collisions, the number of collisions that are occurring is quite high in number. For any reaction, the collision that is occurring between reactant ranges from 10 raised to power 25 to 10 raised to power 28 collisions per second. This is called as collision frequency. This is what is collision frequency. So what do we mean by collision frequency? It is actually, you can say, the number of collisions that are occurring per unit volume or area in a second. But if we look at this value, that 10 raised to power 25, 10 raised to power 28 per second. So that means this much collisions are occurring in almost every reactions. But the rate of reaction is not always same. We know that few reactions are quite fast in their rate, some reactions are very slow and some reactions are moderate. The reason behind them is that though the number of collisions is high, but all the collisions are not effective in nature. All the collisions are not effective in nature. Effective here specifies that like only few collisions could break the bond between the reactant molecules and could help them in forming the products. So all the collisions out of 10 to the 25 to 28 per second is not effective. Like to have a higher rate, what we need is we need the rate of effective collision to be higher. We need the rate of effective collision to be higher. So what we are going to write or how we are going to explain that collision is important or why all the reactions are not occurring at same rate. So the reason is that when we are mixing reactants, the molecules of reactants come closer because they have kinetic energy, they are randomly moving. So on mixing, they come closer as they are randomly moving. So what happens? They start colliding with each other. And for the reactions to occur, collision is must, because when they'll collide, only then the old bonds of reactants will break and the new bonds between the reactants will form, which will transform them into product. And then only the reaction is going to be possible. So what we have seen is that almost 10 is per 25 to 28 collision per second is the, you can say, a constant value which is maximum seen in most of the reaction, but the rate is not same for all. The reason being that for the reaction to occur, what we need is we need effective collisions. We need effective collisions. And there are certain barriers which are actually, you can say that there are certain barriers which are actually making the collisions ineffective. So, we have two terms we have studied till now. One is the collision frequency, another is the effective collision. Collision frequency refers to the number of collisions. It refers to the number of collisions occurring per unit volume or area per second, right? Which is usually 10 to the power 25 to 10 to the power 28 per second. And effective collisions are those which can actually make the reactant get converted to products. This is what like we know that these two are the necessary conditions for the reaction, any reaction, to occur in a proper manner. So this is how you're going to write number of collisions which are occurring per unit volume or area per second. So this specifies the collision frequency, and every reaction has got a certain collision frequency, but mostly it lies between the range 10 to the power 25 to 28 per second. Effective collision. Effective collisions are defined as the collision which can actually convert the reactant into product. That is, they are somehow helping the reactants to break their old bonds and helping them to form new bonds, that is the products. But all the collisions are not effective. All the collisions are not effective. The reason being the energy barrier. The reason being, one of the reason is energy barrier. See, for the reactants to collide in an effective manner, they should have minimum energy. They should have minimum energy. For example, if I say that in a class, in order to pass an exam, there has to be a certain passing marks which each and every student should achieve, right? So likewise, in a reaction to cause effective collision, they have to possess the certain minimum energy, that is the threshold energy. And if they have minimum this energy, then only they can cross this barrier. As you can see that there is a certain barrier, they have to overcome this barrier, and for overcoming this barrier they need minimum this energy. Then only they'll pass. Like the children will pass their exam, likewise the reactant will pass this energy test, and then only they can effectively collide. Now, if they possess this threshold energy, then only they can overcome this energy barrier and can cause the effective collision. That is, they can actually help the reactants in breaking the bond and forming the new bonds. Second is the orientation barrier. See, let us consider one example. I think then you'll become more clear with this orientation barrier. Let's say if we look at the road, right? We know traffic is there. Let's say we have two cars. We have two cars, right? And they are moving Like, so when they are moving, let's say they by chance they collide with each other, and as a result what happens, they collide in this manner, and there's a chance that there is not no direct collision, just you can say the side of the cars touch each other. Let's say two cars are like this and they are moving, and what happened, they collide, but the collision is such that only their side parts get mingled with each other, right? So what do you think will cause the maximum loss? Obviously this one is going to cause the maximum loss because this is the direct collision, and in this the loss will be comparatively less because only the sides came in contact. So this is what is orientation. This is what this is called as orientation. So now for the reaction to happen, the colliding molecules must collide like this. That is, there should be a direct collision. Whenever there'll be a direct collision, then only the old bonds will break up. All bonds will break up and the new bonds will be formed. But if the collision is like that, that the molecules that are the colliding molecules, they don't have proper orientation like this. So their point of meeting is quite less. They're just touching each other. So this will not result in the bond breakage, right? So in case of roads, it is beneficial that if two, you can say, cars are not getting in close collision. But in case of the reaction, the close, you can say, the direct collision is necessary. And so for that, they should have proper orientation, then only they can cause the effective collision. So now I think we can sum up the collision theory. So what is collision theory now? So it states that for any reaction to occur, collisions are must. I told you that collisions are must because collisions are responsible for breaking the old bonds and making, or you can say, transforming the reactants into products. But we have seen that only certain fraction of collisions are effective. Right. The reason being that to cause effective collision, the reacting molecules must possess minimum energy, that is the threshold energy, and they do have proper orientation. Then only the rate will become faster, then only the reactant will get converted into product. Now let's start with question and answers. So the first question is that we have to write the rate expression for the following equation. So the first equation is 2H2 plus O2 forms 2H2O, and the second is 2NO2 plus F2 forming NO2F. So in order to write the rate expression, here we this is not mentioned that whether you have to write the average rate expression or you have to write the instantaneous rate reaction expression. So if it is not mentioned, what we are going to do is we are going to write only the average rate expression, because the difference between the two is just the delta and the D. So if it is mentioned instantaneous rate, then you have to make use of the D, that is the small change. But if it is not mentioned, then we'll be writing only the delta, which indicates the total change. So let's write for this equation. So here R will be equal to minus, because H is a reactant, so decrease in the concentration of H2, right, with change in time. This 2 is put here as 2, that is the power, or you can say the stoichiometric coefficient, is equal to the decrease in the concentration of O2 with change in time, which is further equal to increase in the concentration of H2O with respect to time, and the mole as the power to this H2. Similarly, for the second equation, we have R is equal to decrease in the concentration of NO2 with change in time, 2 is put here as moles, is equal to decrease in the concentration of F2 with change in time, which is further equal to increase in the concentration of NO2F divided by delta T. So this is how you're going to write the rate expression. So I think you got it. Whenever you've been asked to write the rate, you have to write the delta. But if the instantaneous rate is specified, then you have to replace this delta by D. Another question is that for a reaction, we have a rate expression given. That is R is equal to K concentration of A, concentration of B, concentration of C raised to power 2. So according to law of mass action, rate is expressed like this. So the question is, how will the rate change when the concentration of A is halved or the C is doubled? So we'll be solving individually for both the cases. Let's solve for this. So whenever it is asked A is halved, so if from this expression you have to consider only the concentration of the given substance, that like this it is A. So R is equal to K and the concentration of A. This is what is the initial expression raised to power 1. So let's make it the first equation. Now it is given that A is halved. A is halved. So let's put the concentration of A as half now. So what is the result? That rate will be affected. That is, it will become half times because it is directly proportional. So it will also be halved. So the answer is, if the concentration of A is halved, even the rate is halved. The rate is halved. Second is C is doubled. Now you have C, so you have to consider the rate and only the concentration of C. So it is like this. As you can see, that expression is this. So this is the initial expression. Now it is given that C is doubled. C is doubled. So let's double the concentration of C. We know it is raised to power 2. So obviously it becomes 4. So in this case, the rate becomes 4 times because 2 into 2, 4. So it becomes 4 times. So similarly, you can do the reactions depending upon that how the concentration is changing. Another question is, we have a similar reaction and we have a similar expression also. And the question is, how will the rate change when concentration of B and C is doubled? So in this case, you have to focus on B and C both. So let's write the expression for B and C. So this is how it depends. So this is the initial equation. Now both gets doubled. So let's double their concentration. Let it be 2B, let it be 2C raised to power 2. So the overall effect of, or you can say the overall change in the concentration is by 8, right? 2 into 2 into 2. So that means rate becomes 8 times in this case. So this is how you can derive that how the rate is changed when the concentration of the species involved in the reaction is changing. Another question is, how K is changed with change in temperature? You know that when we are writing the rate expression for according to the law of mass action, so we have the rate constant K and we write the reactants raised to their respective powers. So this is what is K, that is, it is the rate constant. Now, in this question, we have to answer that how K gets affected with change in temperature. We know that with change in temperature, the kinetic energy of reactant molecule increase and they start moving with greater kinetic energy, and when they move, they collide with each other, and as a result, the rate gets affected. So that means with increase in concentration, with increase in temperature, the rate also increases. Right. So we know that R and K are directly proportional. So if the rate is increasing, obviously the K also increases. So this is how the K is related to temperature, that it is directly proportional to temperature. That is, increase in temperature increases the value of K, decrease in temperature decreases the value of K. Now, we also have the, you can say, the particular value for which the K increases. Like it is concluded that for every 10 degrees Celsius rise in temperature, for every 10 degrees Celsius rise in temperature, the rate almost doubles. The rate almost doubles. So we know that R is directly proportional to K. R is directly proportional to K. So if the temperature increases by 10 degree, so rate doubles. So K is directly proportional to rate. So that means K also doubles. Right. So this is how the K is changed with change in temperature. Thank you for watching this video, and for more learning experience, you can visit to www.vossarax.com. So with this, we finish part 1. Now we'll be studying part 2, in which we'll be dealing completely with equilibrium.